Father, I thank you so much for you have seen fit to call me to share this good news. We have to paint the ugly pictures first, but we always know that good news is infused even in the ugly picture. And so I pray as we talk that your spirit would bless each person under the sound of my voice, and they would hear that which they need to hear. Thank you so much for doing just that. In Jesus' name, amen. We all have, had some experience of shame, all of us. That's just the nature of shame. And what I have appreciated about understanding the biblical framework has been just great. And I've already talked about my love for the first 3 chapters of Genesis, chapters 1, 2, and 3. And that's where I'm going to take you back before Genesis 1, 2, 3, and I want to talk about the Godhead. And this is, all of these subjects kind of build on each other. Tomorrow we're going to talk about community, but our first experience of community we find in the Godhead, the triune God, Father, Son, and Spirit, 3 entities together in one purpose. And in that community, there was peace, community, love, authenticity, self-sacrifice is part of love. And if you have not experienced self-sacrifice in your loving, I want you to take another look at it. But all those are part of what this community was like in eternity past. And because the foundation of that community was love, or is love, love always is expansive. I tell the story when God made it clear that after my second time out with David, that this was the one I had for him. And after I argued about him being in the wrong package, I did sat with the Lord, and I thought about how enlarged I felt being in relationship with him. He just made me a better person. And this was just as a result of the friendship and the things that we were able to talk about and interact with. It was just a very rich time and interaction with him. And so that's the nature of love. We expand and are creative. And so the Godhead set about the business of creating. So the universe, the planets and the stars, and of course the other unfallen planets. And they were just busy creating, and they included them in this community. And they also enjoyed this peace, love, authenticity, and this sense of community. And it was a good thing that they were a part of, right? And I have a dear friend who's professor at Andrews in the New Testament, and he talks about systematic theology, and he talks about, of all the combinations when God said, let us create humanity, of all the combinations that God came up with, he came up with the idea of giving humanity the right to choose, the freedom to choose. And so this process of creating, we don't have any idea how expansive, how large the universe is, but if we could even try to understand in some minuscule way of God, we can imagine, because love has that creative element, it's a pretty expansive proposition. And so, but when it came to humanity, they decided they wanted to create humanity in their image. They wanted them to reflect that. And we don't know how long they were part of this community and all that went with it, and the peace and authenticity that was present in the community. But it happened. And then when sin entered into the picture, there was a rupture of community. There was a rupture of all that went on and was a part of this community. Sin entered, and we know that happened, first of all, in heaven, and then, of course, with Adam and Eve. And we started down that path a little bit this morning. And so here they are. There's this rupture in relationship. Remember when God came down, and a fascinating study. The Bible says, I think in the King James it says something about God came as he walked through the garden in the cool of the day. And the translation leaves, it's a little more nuanced than that. And it seems to suggest that the presence of God was more like his thunderous appearance when he appeared on Mount Sinai. And he came and he asked two questions back to back. And the first question was, where are you? And it wasn't the question because he didn't know where they were, right? That wasn't really the question that was at stake. Where are you? The real issue was, what's going on? And then the second question was, who told you were naked, right? And so there was this rupture in relationship. Again, I just want to leave you with some good news, provide you with some good news. God went in pursuit of them, right? So they hid, but he went in pursuit of them. And so it wasn't like we have this idea that God was, again, your view of God is certainly shaped by that template we talked about last night, but he went in search of them. In other words, God is not at war with us. He's never been at war with us, ever. And so he went in pursuit of them, knowing they needed somebody to pursue them. Wow, that's a lesson right there in forgiveness. I usually have this lecture on forgiveness. You can find it on YouTube. It's powerful. God goes in pursuit of us. He's not at war with us. It's the good news I want you to know. He's never been at war with us. The truth is, we're at war with him, but he's not at war with us, right? Where are you? What's going on? And of course, they tell Adam and Eve explains what happened. The last verse in Genesis chapter 2 says they were naked and unashamed. And I often thought about why did God say they were naked and unashamed? Why didn't he use some other phrase to describe their condition? But I think there's a beautiful, beautiful story here. We were created for vulnerability. We were created for authenticity. It's not like, well, I'm a very private person. You've heard that before, right? I'm a very private person. Yeah. I want you to know we were created to be open and vulnerable. That's why I can stand up and tell you all my dirty laundry, because I ain't got no shame, right? And so we were created for that. So if you follow the narrative after Adam and Eve sinned, so God said, Adam, what happened? And Adam says, the woman you gave me, she gave me this fruit. And then Eve says, the snake you created talked to me, and I bought it hook, line, and sinker, right? And If you look at that, there is some fear here. The reason why Adam and Eve hid was because they were afraid. They had bought into the lie that God. Okay, I'm kind of going fast here, but I got to go back and get this thought. So God said, hey, you're mine. You know, I told you about the conversation I imagine he had when they awoke, and hey, you know, you're all good. Everything I have is yours. The enemy comes along and says to Eve, who heard from Adam that God said, don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So Adam had to convey that to her, right? If you read the narrative, he told her. And so then Eve says, well, wait a minute. God said, I'm not going to surely die, and of course the enemy said, well, God's holding something back from her. Can you imagine, I'm a therapist, can you imagine the angst that rumbled up inside of her, this new feeling that rumbled up inside of her that perhaps God was not as good as he said he was. New sensation. She's had experience with him. She's known him, but he's saying, he's not as good as you think. And she entertains that. And now she is confronted. Well, maybe he's not as good as he says he is. And the day that we ate this fruit, we're going to die. So they are already struggling with this fear that, maybe he's not as good as he says. She takes that. And by the way, anxiety is contagious. If you're around a bunch of people or one person who's anxious, you find yourself getting anxious too. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, so it's contagious, as it were. So she goes to Adam, and Adam, God, here, take this fruit. I don't know what the conversation was, but somehow Adam did not believe that God could do better than Eve, right? Imagine the fear that wells up in him. This beautiful gift is now, something's going to happen to her, and maybe God can't. And so he's got some fear going on as well. They take of the fruit, and now they recognize that they're naked, and they go and hide. And they go and hide because of this fear element, right? And as a result of that, we get this, I'm afraid, I'm hiding. And then now we also have this judging that they do. They judge that God is not fair. He gave he created these people, these circumstances. And so Adam judged God, Eve judged God, and they both are blaming the snake. And we got this shaming going on that's between husband and wife who are supposed to be as one. We got some shaming going on. She just messed up, right? And we also have now this idea of, if you think about it, and this is really very important. So Eve was victimized by the snake. She goes and victimizes Adam, and then Adam victimizes God by saying that God messed up. Okay? So right at the beginning, with the fallout of sin, are those four elements. And the big one is this victim-victimizer cycle. I feel victimized. I'm going to now victimize you. David didn't make up the bed this morning. I'm not fixing breakfast. You didn't speak to me this morning because you have on a new dress. I'm not speaking to you. We now have this cycle, victim-victimizer. They're linked together. we have this judging that has happened. Adam is judging. Everybody's judging, right? Just think about this for a minute. The creatures are judging the judge. And this victimization thing, they are doing that to God, and he takes it. Important. And let me just throw in a little gem from the forgiveness piece. When Jesus came, he broke apart that victim-victimizer cycle. He was victimized, he took it in, and didn't victimize back. Instead of giving victimization back to those who hurt him, he gave grace. Okay? But we see the first installment of that happening where they are judging God and saying God is a problem. They're victimizing God, and he takes it. I mean, that's just amazing. Do you see this great heart of God all in the service of winning them back? Because love always wins. So we got these effects going on ever since sin came in. And I don't know how to explain this any more clearly, that this is all part and parcel of the sin package. Like H, you need 2 ions of hydrogen and 1 of oxygen to create water. These 4 elements are part of the sin complex. Does that make sense? That's how I have to visualize it, right? And so we got this going on, and this is how sin has impacted us. And so when I said that we are all struggling with shame, I'm saying that that's the cycle here. Shame comes in, and again, I'm going to give you a definition here in a minute, what shame is about. But at the core, at the base of our struggle is shame. And everything we do after that, all the things we do when we are in control, when we are very controlling, when we are taking care of ourselves, protecting ourselves, when I am engaged in perfectionism, when I am a martyr, when I am codependent, when I don't know how to set boundaries, which is the next topic, and I hope you guys stay around for that one too. All of that, at the base of that is shame. That's the foundation of all of it. What's the definition of shame? This is the definition. It's hard to define. Why is it hard to define? Because that's the nature of it. Because when you see shame, it loses its power when you bring it to the light. And so it has to kind of lurk around in shady places, okay? And let me show you how we use shame words. This is shame, but we say, I was humiliated, I was embarrassed, I was indignant, I felt disgraced. Those are words, but underneath that, if we sit with those words, underneath that is the experience of shame. The problem with shame, it is the most difficult and the most challenging feelings that come along, the emotional state that comes along with shame. And we all share that at some level. This is the experience, so I can't put words to it, but let me give you the experience. The experience is, I am not enough. There's this chasm that exists between me and everybody else, and I am not enough. I can't bridge that chasm. I'm just not enough. There's something wrong with me. Now, I'm going to get a little technical, but I'm going to try to keep it basic because I think, again, the reason why I want to do this is because I think it helps you when you sit with it. And I'm happy to leave these PowerPoints if you want them. Pastor John may make them available to you. I have no reason to hold on to anything because God's people are hurting. And so I want you to have as much as you can available to you. The important feature of shame is not the fact that I'm not enough, okay? So the reality is I'm not enough. I can't change my life. Nothing's good. I'm never going to be enough. But it's the feeling I have, this sense that I have that I am not enough. It's the feeling of it. And what it does is it causes me to, I do not have what it takes to tolerate the moment right now. If you could, this feeling is so much, and I can't tolerate the moment or this circumstance, and I want the ground. This was my definition. I want the ground to open up, and I want to fall in. That's what I want. I want the ground just to open up, and I'm going to fall in and have it cover me over like Dathan in the Byron. That's what I want. This inability to tolerate this moment causes me to judge myself. It causes me to say, see, you're not enough. And then it reinforces the shame, and I'm in this cycle. I'm not enough. I can't tolerate this feeling. I should be able to tolerate this feeling, but I can't. And now that's really why, oh man, you are such a loser. You're dumb and dumber. And so I can't even tolerate it. So now it becomes like a cycle. And what I want to do is to isolate myself and hide. Are you tracking with me? And so this feeling I have, it's just too much. I can't take it. And I'm sorry this is not bigger. These are ideas about shame that is just so profound. It's the feeling deeply, very deeply, with this sense of myself. And if you don't have a strong sense of yourself, and your value and your worth, it just really causes you to, I know you're not going to be able to tolerate that either, right? You are not going to be able to, I can't tolerate it, right? And then there's something I feel that I'm bad. There's something wrong with me, but I also am bad. I remember when I was pregnant, my neighbor, once the news hit the neighborhood that I was pregnant, this young lady I used to play with all the time came and she told me, my mother told me I can't play with you anymore because you're a bad girl. And, because you got pregnant. And, man, I was already feeling bad. I'm 13 and a half, right? And now I'm really feeling bad. In a rather ironic twist, I went back and did a lot of work in the same projects I grew up in, had neighborhood Bible clubs, and, I love kids and love talking to them and connecting with them. And knocked on this door and talked about this Bible study, this teen club we were going to start. And she opened the door, and the same young lady, and she was married. I don't know if she was married, but she had kids, and she was stuck in the projects. And I thought, oh, how interesting, just okay. Anyway, and then it's even difficult to separate myself from the shame. I can't say, this is really important. I have feelings that run the gamut of emotions that I can have on any given day. And I can say, well, you feel tired or you feel unhappy, but this too shall pass. You don't have to stay there, right? You feel disappointed, acknowledge you feel disappointed, but you don't have to stay there. And so those feelings come through. And I can say, I feel that. I'm ADHD, and I can see I have a word picture of my ADHD, and it's like it's a conveyor belt, and I have all these thoughts that run through, and I can grab this thought, and I can grab this thought. And part of the hack that I use is, you don't have to grab every thought that runs past, and you don't have to do everything that comes past, right? And so, but shame, you can't separate it out. It becomes you embody this sense of not being enough. It's just, and I'm really wanting to sit here with you because that's what it feels like. This is not embarrassment, no, this is like, separating the, I can't read that, y'all. Separating my awareness of what I feel. Oh, I just said that. And, oh, yeah, you can experience shame without guilt. So the next slide, we're going to talk about that in a minute, too. Yeah, you can experience shame without guilt. Very important distinction. Remember, because it is contained in sin, as part of the H2O metaphor, shame makes its way into our story very, very early. And what we know right now, we even know that it comes in as early as we have conscious memory of our initial encounter. We have no conscious memory of it in our initial encounter. This can take place as early as 15 to 18 months of age. Remember I said this morning that a child experiences life through his senses, right? And so Mom, I'm a young baby. Mom comes and she has a scowl on her face. And I'm happy to see her, but I see this scowl on her face. And I'm hauled up short experientially because I'm moving toward her in relationship, but I see the scowl, and is it because of me? I sense her tension. Is it because of me? And again, the child has no words for that, but the experience is, man, they feel it in their bodies. There's this sense, there's this shift that takes place in their body. And shame is a feeling, emotion that you feel in your body, right? And so they feel that, and is it me? And we can't sort that out, especially at this young age. We can't sort it out, but it is part of the process. Okay, that's what I was just talking about. Okay. We feel it inside. Mommy's not happy, and I don't know why. Is it because of me? And we feel it. Remember I said that this stuff is wired in our system, right? And so part of the wiring, we feel it before we have words. The limbic system says, there's danger, and it sounds the alarm to the midbrain, and then you're like, okay, this is all unconscious. A child has no control over that, right? So what's the difference between guilt and shame? Guilt is about, it's a standard I have about myself, and as I have hurt someone else, right? It impacts something else I've done. I forgot to pay the bill, and so I feel guilty because I didn't pay the bill, and now it's going to mess up our credit, and David's not going to be happy because he won't be able to buy his new Rolls Royce, and it's just, so it definitely impacts someone else. Shame is just a feeling, and it can be triggered by anything. Remember, it's deeply associated with how I feel about myself. And so guilt is about something I do with someone else, and shame is a sense of who I am with myself. You tracking with me? Okay. And It is when I realize I've done something bad, I can feel bad about that. Man, I did it. Okay, I can feel bad. But then when I make things right with that person, I can, it'll be okay, right? And I recognize that it's around, and that comes out, emerges between 3 and 6 years of age, and I think that's really important. So I can have shame as early as 18 months, but 3 to 6 years of age is when I develop guilt. And I'm drawn to the other person, and I feel empathic because I've hurt them. Right? Man, I messed up. I didn't pay the bill. I messed up. My mommy's mad at me because I didn't put away my toys the way I should have. And so I've done something and I feel bad. I look at this other person and I feel bad. And then I want to resolve that because I want to be close to the other person. Really important. I want to be close to the other person. And it's impossible to experience guilt without some shame. Okay? I just said that. Okay. Now, I got to explain this. Please stay with me. This is important, important, important. Are you with me so far? I'm not? Okay. And the reason why this is important is because if you understand, if I could summarize what I'm going to say, if you understand that you feel it in your body, and because you feel it in your body, I feel anxious. I feel afraid. I feel whatever I feel, I understand that this is coming up and my body is feeling it. I feel like I can't breathe, although I can breathe just fine. I mean, my heart is racing, although there's nothing really to be afraid of. I feel it, and it's important to understand that you're going to feel shame first. It's going to be a physiological thing that happens, and it happens in your brain. What has been really cool for years and years and years, we thought the brain and the mind were the same. They're not. The brain houses the mind, and the mind has, I think, 11 components to it. And they all have to work together to have an integrated brain, and the more they are separate, function separately, and then come together and function fully together. That's what really we call integration, and it's really healthy. What happens with our emotions, there's a regulatory balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system in our bodies, right? The sympathetic system is connected to arousal states. The parasympathetic is about rest. I feel rest. Everything is, I'm digesting food, and it's really slowing down. The arousal system, the sympathetic system, is about acceleration. We say acceleration, and then parasympathetic is about rest and relaxation. In relationship, what these two systems do, they're supposed to work together, and they set the tone, the emotional tone of our world. And if I know, for example, when I call David tonight, I am moving toward David. So that's a parasympathetic action. A sympathetic action. I'm moving toward him. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to talking to him. And that's like I have my foot on the accelerator, and I'm moving toward him, right? And when that's, they're supposed to be in balance, but if I call him and he doesn't have time to talk, well, I'm going to feel some kind of way about that, right? It doesn't have to be about me, but I'm going to feel some kind of way about that. But these two systems, I'm going to say, oh, okay, he can't talk because I called him too late, he's asleep, and I'm going to be able to say it's not about me, I can do that, right? But it really is important, the relationship of the clutch, which is the sympathetic, the parasympathetic, and the sympathetic is the accelerated. They have to work in balance. And learning to do that, we learn to do that in relationships. So let me tell you what happens with shame. So I'm moving toward David, all is well, and then all of a sudden, David looks at me with a scowl on his face. I'm moving toward him. I have accelerated. And now the shearing off effect is I did not slow down because I was going 90 miles an hour going toward him. He's not having it. And so now I'm cut off at the pace. Cut my legs off, right? I feel it in my body. Oh, something, okay? And so I didn't get a chance to say, oh, let me put my brakes on because he's tired. I didn't see his face. I didn't recognize that he was in bed when I called. I'm talking here and he's there. I didn't see that. And so I am excited to see him in relationship, but it gets cut off. For a child, a little child who's excited to be in relationship with their parent, they're going toward their parent, and their parent is not available, their parent is angry, their parent is upset, somebody has done this to them, and so they are totally ignorant of how they're impacting their child. This child is, look at my picture I drew, Mommy. Oh, I don't have time right now. Leave that picture alone. I am going toward my parent relationally, and they've cut me off at the legs. I have the body sensation of that, and the only way I can make sense of it is to say, it must be me. And what we know, and I'm going to say this real quick, this is the next slide, right? Okay, so I'm going to say this, that the prefrontal cortex and the midbrain, which is where our emotions are, the emotions will always kick the prefrontal cortex offline. Emotions respond 500 times quicker than the thinking brain. That's why you walk in a room and you see somebody, you say, oh, I'm going to act like, all is well, although I'm mad at him. You cannot hide that. Why? Because your emotional brain is 500 times quicker than your thinking brain. And so your thinking brain is unable to put all the pieces together in an integrated way. Oh, she is not talking to me because she is busy talking to the sound man about the song she's about to sing, and it has nothing to do with me, and, oh, okay, that's what's going on. Can't put all that together, and I feel some kind of way because she's not talking to me, but I have no capacity because my thinking brain is offline. Shame will do that every time, kick our thinking brain offline. I will say, something's wrong with me. Something's wrong with this idea that I have, there's something going on. And what will happen is, I want to talk about disintegration, because when I am left with these feelings and I don't have my prefrontal cortex online, what happens is my brain is disintegrated, okay? What do I mean? And the term is a picture falling apart at the seams. That's what the term really means. Everything disintegrates, right? It's just boom. For the brain, disintegration describes what happens in and among the mind in the context of all of those parts. Remember I said all of these parts must work together to be integrated, and everything is working. I have a sense of time. There are 11 domains of the mind, and all of them work together, and as they work together in a healthy fashion, I'm good. When they don't, my brain is disintegrated. They're not connecting. These parts are not connecting the way they should. And the question about, I don't know who I am, that disintegration is literally felt on the inside. How many of you are, I go to this sense, we either move, is it? Oh, okay, I can do this next one, make this make sense. So what happens is, John didn't speak to me today because he was upset with me because I didn't have the mic on right or whatever. And so I was moving toward him and, hey, John, glad to see you. He's not speaking to me. I'm moving toward a relationship. I get cut off, right? And as I get cut off, I have this sense of what's going on in my gut. And if my mind is not able to, it has nothing to do with me. John is busy doing X, Y, Z, and this is happening, and this is happening. He's trying to get on stage and all of that. I have none of these pieces to put together. I'm left to feel this. But because John did that 25 years ago in Fairfield, I am now reacting to him as though it was 25 years ago at Fairfield when he really did ignore me because he didn't like something I did. We got it straight, but now I am reacting in the past as though it's the present. And then I bring in the present relationally this sense of, well, I must not be enough. My thinking brain is kicked offline. I'm not thinking about, this is not 25 years ago. We talked about it and all is well. What am I talking about? None of that. My thinking brain's offline. And my emotions are now running the show. And my primary emotion is shame. Something's wrong with me. You tracking? So the power of shame, and this may be the first time it's been broken down to you this way. That's why I really want you to have the PowerPoint. Please, Pastor John, if anybody wants to make it available. What happens is, because my mind is triggered by all of this old stuff, I can only visualize the future that every time I see John, he's going to do this to me again, right? And so I can't visualize that because I don't have my thinking brain online. I can't imagine that he's going to do something different. I don't have those pieces. I am now thinking it's only going to be the same thing. So every time I see John, he's going to do that. And then I am going to move to condemnation, feeling bad about myself, and I only see things, man, he's never going to like me as a pastor. I don't care how long he's here. I don't care how long I'm here. He's never going to like me as a pastor. And what can I do? And now I'm awash in shame because I am not enough. Let's see. Yeah. And if I let him know that I'm really hurt by this, it's not going to be good. So I'm not going to let him know, and I'm not going to let you know about my broken parts. And so what I do is just suck it up and act like all is well. You know what I mean? But I'm still awash in this shame. But I'm not going to let you know how bad I feel. And disintegration is found in each and every one of our stories because trauma is found in each and every one of our stories. And trauma can be something as simple as, I broke my favorite doll when I was 6 years old, and my mother said, I told you not to play with that doll. My mom didn't come and connect with me and say, oh, I'm so sorry this happened to you in an empathic way. She told me, suck it up. You had no business having that happen. Well, what's the problem here? And that's traumatic for me because I love this doll. And trauma could be anything for anybody. I feel helpless at that time. I have no agency to change my mother's response, and she's not going to buy me another doll. So I am stuck. Okay? So trauma for me may not be trauma for you. We may experience the exact same experience, and it may be traumatic for me, and it may not be traumatic for you. Why? Because you got some pieces a little more together in that integration process than I did because of my experience. Or I'm going to explain this tomorrow. That's the PowerPoint I really want you to see, and I don't have it together here tonight. So what happens with us internally when we feel shame? Our mind disintegrates. My thinking brain goes offline. I'm not awash in feelings. And I feel isolated. I'm not going to run toward John. I'm going to run away, pull away from him, right? I was running, accelerating toward him. I got cheered, got cut off at the legs, and so now I'm going to pull back. I'm going to run away from him. And then this shame, this self-perpetuation of shame. And now I feel shame. I'm mad because I'm feeling this shame. And here we go. We go around and around and around we go. And then in that hiding, the pulling away, our narrative gets changed. I now know that I can never be friends with John. I just can't be friends with John. And he just has proved the template that we talked about. He has proved the truth of that template, that I'm not worthy of being loved. I'm not precious. He just proved it. And so therefore, my narrative gets changed. Now, if you think about a little kid, how their narrative is changed. They come skipping and hopping and happy to see mom. Mom dismisses them, cannot connect with that child. Shame is inserted in that child's story. And now their narrative is changed. Something's wrong with me. Mommy doesn't love me. She doesn't care about me. This is really serious stuff, right? But how shame shows up in our story, the way we think about ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, and the way we treat ourselves. Critical. I cannot talk to somebody about treating themselves. So we love to talk about the health message, right? I can tell you, like, let me tell you, if you only eat 2 meals a day, make your last meal at 3 o'clock, you'll be fine and you're going to be okay. I can tell you that till the cows come home. But if you don't feel good about yourself and you find food as a source of comfort for you, I wouldn't care what you tell me about health. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and eat as a source of comfort, to eat and try to settle my heart, settle that disintegrated feeling. And then I'll pray and say, oh, Lord, please forgive me. Please forgive me, Lord. I'm going to do better. I'm going to really do right. No. I could tell you, don't overwork. Why are you working so hard? What is going on? Why are you working so hard? Well, I got to work, and I know I shouldn't work this hard. I really shouldn't. But because how you feel about yourself, you deserve that. People who don't feel good about themselves, people who really are not that important, people who have no value, they can mistreat themselves. You see how this works? Okay, so let's move to the good news, the good news, the good news, the good news. I don't know if you're going to like the good news, but it is still good news. This is the good news. It is impossible. What did I say? Impossible to recover from shame alone. It's impossible. You need someone to come alongside you who sees you and still loves you and even help you with this awful sense of being overwhelmed with how shame feels, help you to modulate those feelings. You tracking with me? It is impossible. So if you see yourself in this story, you see that you have a lot of shame, you are not going to be able to get down on your knees and pray and say, Lord, please help me to deal with my shame. It does not work that way. You need someone to come alongside you and help you to really, really modulate those feelings and to help you in really managing how you seeing yourself. I'm not seeing it that way. And I'm going to tell this really ugly story about myself. that I said I was never going to tell anybody, and my community told me, don't worry, you'll be up telling everybody soon. And so it's true. So several years ago, we were in Orlando. David and I were in Orlando. David was doing a presentation. I was at the booth manning, selling our books. And there was a woman there with me, and she had books to sell too. So we were sharing a table. And she said, listen, my friend is coming. She hasn't been back to church. She hadn't been to church in 10 years, and she's coming. I told her all about you, and I want her to meet you. And I said, oh, that's great. And so in walks this little petite Latino woman, cute as she could be. And the backstory was she was married to a pastor, worked in the conference office, and found out her husband was having an affair. Went to the conference brethren, and of course he denied it, and she lost her job. And a year later, it did come out that indeed he had an affair, but he lost his job. She lost her home. It was just a really, really hard time for her. The people in her church, before the news came out about him, lined up with him. He's the pastor after all. You know, why is she ruining his career, right? And so she left the church, never to come back until that day. She lost her home, didn't have a job. She went to a church, a First Day church, and she told them, people befriended her, very friendly. The church was very friendly. And they said to her, listen, what do you need? They paid her rent for 6 months, bought her furniture, or furnished her apartment, provided everything she needed. She was blown away because she had never had anything like that happen to her in our quarters, and so she was blown away, and she was slowly getting back up on her feet. She never left God, though. She called him Papa, and she never left Papa. And so whenever she would need something, she would say, Papa, I need so-and-so and so-and-so, and God would miraculously provide. She didn't tell anybody, but God would provide. So here she is 10 years later, and this lady is talking to me, and Julie had told her about the prayer ministry and how, David and I had blessed her in the prayer ministry, and she wanted her to experience that. So we found a little nook in the auditorium, and we went and talked. We talked for about an hour and a half, and we had a prayer ministry. She was snotting and crying, and it was just really powerful. The Spirit of God was so heavy on this experience. It was great. And, she hugged me after she finished and had an abuse history and, of course, the abuse in this marriage, and she was just so thrilled. And this sounds pretty benign, right? So far, so good? Okay. Pretty benign. So we finish, and we come back out to the table, and I'm impressed to give this lady some money. And so I said, oh, yeah, okay, Lord, no problem. She can have whatever I got. So we're talking, and she's talking with a friend, and she's just aglow. And so I go over to the cash box, and I get $50 out the cash box, and I fold it up nice, and we just chit-chatting and everything. And so I wanted to get it to her. And in black circles, we put money in our bosoms, right? And so for some reason, I don't know what caused me to think this other than the Spirit of God. I thought, well, I don't want her to not accept this money. So did I tell you the woman had an abuse history? Did I tell you that? She had an abuse history? Okay. So I kind of walk over to her and I hug her, right? And then I take her blouse and I do this and I drop the money down her bra. I did. I did. I did. That's the impulsivity of ADHD, right? The woman started to cry. Oh my God, what have I done? Ground open up right now. I am mortified at what I have done. I am so sorry. Please, please. I said, I just didn't want you to rebuff my funds. I just wanted you to have it. And I was just talking and I was blabbering and she was crying. And she said, oh no, you don't understand. I asked Papa for money for bras today. Thank you. This is what this money is for. I know for certain that's what it's for. Just this morning, I asked him for money for bras. Bless your heart. And she's hugging me and thank you. And Julie said, oh, no, we're going to go, after this session, we're going to go and get you some bras. Tomorrow morning, we're going to go and get you some bras. God is so good. So they are just praising the Lord. I'm still basking in my mortification and my shame, right? And so I'm like, oh, Lord. I heard it. I saw her reaction, but I am gone. Who does that? So, and I made up in my mind, right now, I'm not telling anybody any of this. I'm not telling any, this sounds awful. And so my sweet husband comes to the back and he said, well, how are you? And I said, I don't know, and I'm not talking. And it's like, what's going on? I'm not talking, I can't tell you. And so I am mortified. And he said, sweetheart, there's nothing you can do that, will make me love you any less. And he's very soft, and I don't care, I'm not telling you nothing. And so finally, I look at him, and it's like, guess what I did? And I told him, and my husband has really big eyes. And his eyes got this big. He turned red. You did what? But then I told him how God blessed, right? And he said, oh, praise the Lord. A little unorthodox, but praise the Lord. And so I wasn't going to tell anybody else, right? But I have this community of two sisters, and we can talk about anything. So got in the airport on Sunday, and I'm still like basking and trying to come out of this shame cycle. And so I called them, and so we did a three-way. How was the conference? It was really good, but nothing happened that I'm willing to share. And it's like, oh, okay. And so I said, I can't tell you. And they like, what? I cannot tell you. And so I finally got up the courage to tell them, and this is what they said. They said, is that all you got? Really? Is that what you're going on and on and on about? Only God would use you to do that assignment. And so I'm not surprised. He wouldn't use me that way. He wouldn't use, one's a physician and one's a counselor, a drug counselor, director of a drug facility. He wouldn't have used me. Well, I got my doctorate. Why he wouldn't use me? Because he knew you would respond. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. And again, I'm washed, I'm sanctified, and I just got diagnosed with ADHD, so I have some hacks now to not be so impulsive, but I thank God for using that. But I said all that to say that you cannot come out of shame by yourself, especially when my friends told me, is that all you got? You know, we thought you were going to tell us you killed somebody, or you tore up the conference or something like that. Is that all? It just really settled my heart so much that my friends really got me and they understood me. So as my mind is totally disintegrated, that really helped me as I told my story. And instead of hiding, I came out in the spirit of being vulnerable. And then community. And now, not the narrative I have, but God's narrative. This woman needs bras. And I want to know, remember I was saying this morning, this is how a daddy treats a daughter who loves her. Who he loves, right? And so that's the story, not my narrative. And somehow, this happened about 6 years ago. I haven't quite gotten to the place where I'm like, you know, I still feel some kind of way about it, but it's almost like helpful for me to talk about it and watch you all react. I can't believe you did that. First time I did this, I was at a women's conference, right? 200 women, and I said, I really don't know why I'm telling y'all this, but I did. And so I just thank God that, you know, shame, you got to deal with it, and how you deal with it is you got to bring it out in the open. So let me just say a word about vulnerability. It's not something we choose, but it is who we are. God made us to be vulnerable. To be human is to be vulnerable, and I think this is really an important element. You have to, it's not, you get to decide what degree you're going to be vulnerable, but you are created to be vulnerable. God created us to, you know me, you look at me now and you say, bless your heart, right? Is that what you said? Is that what you said? Isn't he? Every time. Yeah. I did. I did. You know, it's, anyway, we avoid physical vulnerability. Thank you. We avoid physical vulnerability to injury or death, which is very understandable, right? However, being open to relational vulnerabilities cuts against the grain of everything that we do. History of what happened when we are vulnerable. We have a history. So if I tell you, then you're going to, you know, put me down and think something's wrong with me. That track record of being shamed. You did what? How did you do that? And what were you thinking? And all the shame questions that we do to each other. And by the way, what I've learned about shame since I've come into understanding and studying this and recognizing my own shame, it really is something you just are always working with. And I now recognize, oh, I'm feeling a little shame, but it's a feeling, and I can not go down the rabbit hole of shame. It's a feeling right now, just like feeling sad is a feeling. I can recognize that now. And so part of the beauty of shame, of overcoming shame, is to, first of all, recognizing it, and of course, not hiding from it. So what shame story will do is this. We had trauma. We live as though there was no cross. We live as though there is no outcome of a different ending of the story. We live as though we're going to get more of the same. I am set up for more and more trauma. That's what shame's story is, and that's what shame will tell us. This is the truth about our lives. But this is really the truth, ladies and gentlemen. There's trauma, there's Christ and the cross, and there's hope and restoration. That's good news. That's wonderful news. That is about being honest and open and naked and unafraid. And I live as though I'm washed, I'm sanctified, I'm justified, and there is hope of restoration for sure. Shame's narrative of lies versus God's narrative of the truth of who you are. Which are you living is the question. And we like to say we're people of the book. We love the Bible. We know that the enemy is the author of lies. But many of us are laboring under his lies about ourselves, about God, about others. We're laboring under that. And so I choose to live in God's narrative that I am enough, and I'm enough because he's enough. I told you that this morning. God has confidence in me. And the reason why he has confidence in me is because he's got confidence in himself. He's living in me. And he's got confidence he's going to bring this thing through. Isn't that great news? Yeah.